Yeah, and welcome to a lesson on how to use the same scale, but you can either use it for minor or for major. Now, if you want to get deep into what we're going to talk about today, there's going to be two links in the description box below. One goes over how to play effectively in minor pentatonic, the other in major. They're three-part series. They're not on YouTube, so check those out. Now, so today, we're going to go over a concept, and it's called the relative minor. So if we're in A major, your relative minor is F sharp. Now, what does that mean? I don't know. I'm not a theory guy, but what I know is that concept allows you to use the same scale. So literally, we're going to use the exact same spot, the exact same scale. One way we play it is going to give us a minor sound. The other is going to give us a major sound. Now, how do we do that? Well, the trick is the target notes, or the chords themselves, and where they are inside of that one scale. Now, the concept I'm going to start with first will be minor. So the trick is to be able to see at all times, no matter where you're at on your fretboard, right, are the chords of the progression. You want to be able to see your chords all over the neck. And the videos in the description box below are going to go over that concept a bunch. But in short, there's a system called the cage system. Highly effective for being able to see chords all over the neck. And that's key when you want to solo melodically. Once you can see the chords inside your scales, you're gold. The rest is just how melodic do you want to be? But that's the major hurdle. It takes, aimlessly wandering around and noodling in a scale to actually being able to confidently solo melodically. Okay, so let's go over a concept. So in my position 1 right here, in F sharp minor, I have this F sharp minor chord, and this is going to be called an E-shaped chord because what my fingers are doing here looks like an E minor chord. So this is an F sharp minor chord, but the shape is an E minor chord. One of the ways you can tell is you're using all 6 strings like an E minor chord, right? Okay, so point being, I got some target notes I want to hit, right? I want to hit, this note, which is my third. Each chord's made up of 3 notes, a root, a third, and a fifth. The third makes the chord major or minor. We got our octave and our fifth. Now check this out. When we do minor licks in the pentatonic scale, typically they resolve to the back side of the scale. And what I mean by that is you got 2 notes, 1, 2. This note would be the back side, this would be the front. So check it out. The target notes I'm going to hit for this F sharp minor chord are all going to kind of be towards the back side in my lick. So watch. When I bend that note, I'm bending to the actual root note, right? I got that D minor shape of my F sharp minor chord right here. But I'm bending to the back side of the scale to get to a target note. Now I can do this, right? And this is part of the chord, right? But when I bend on my G string, I'm bending to another note, the fifth, right, of my chord. So when I do that lick, fifth, root, okay, all towards the back side of my scale, and then I might come back and resolve. Right? And so there's my root note, again, towards the back side of the scale. Now this is just loose, right? It's not 100% all the time, but typically when you start to analyze the licks, this is true, okay? So we go to second position, right? Keep in mind our chords, right? The target note, that's the fifth, the root, and then the third, okay? So when I come into a lick that's like, right, me bending this up gets to a note in my chord. Right? Backside of my scale, right? The root. And then the fifth, all in the backside. So the third is not, but a typical bend in this position is this one. Right? So you're bending up to a note in your chord, and then you're resolving to your root right there. This note, right? And then back to. Right, again, so towards the back, right? You have another shape of an F minor chord. Think of an A minor chord, right? Look at these three fingers. They look like an A minor chord, right? Again, this all relates to the cage system, so check out those other videos. But a lot of those target notes, my scale, right? So I might bend there, gets me into my F sharp minor chord here. Right, backside gets me to my root. Right, that gets me to my third. Right? So that's minor, right? And you're typically on the back side of the scale. Major is the exact opposite. So you gotta play the major scale totally differently. Your minor licks typically will not work in major, right? Unless your major progression that you're playing has minor chords in it, and I'll show you that trick here in just a minute. But typically when you're playing an A major for a 1-4-5 or whatever, you're playing over A major chords, you need to play the scale like it's a major scale. So now if you notice, my target notes are now towards the front side of the scale, right? I got my fifth, my root, my third, right? So, right? Position 2, we got the E shape of my A chord. Think of the three fingers here, right? It's an E shape, using all 6 strings. But the target notes, front side of position 2, right? So, right, so I'm resolving to the front side of this position as well. Okay, so it's finding where the chord lies within that same scale. Again, it's the same scale, but I'm playing over different chords. This one I'm playing over an F sharp minor chord, so my target notes are in a different spot of the scale than when I'm playing an A major front side. Okay, so that's kind of how you look at it, right? So over my F sharp minor chord, I'm gonna play a lick like, okay, and I'm gonna resolve there to my root. All I did was I slid up from 2 to 4 on the A, and then I went 2 to 4 on my D, hit my third, and then back to my root. So the third is G2, and then back to D4. Let's get a bending lick in there. So I'm bending up, and I'm hitting the fifth of this F sharp minor chord. So I go bend up G4, then I'm hitting my fifth, right, on the B2, hitting the root on E2, and then when I bend up the 5th fret, B, I'm getting to my root note of this chord shape. Okay, I'm gonna come back, root, back to my 5th, bend to my 5th, 3rd, and then resolve on D4, my root. Okay, so that's minor. Let's look at position 2. So I'm sliding in to the 6th fret of the G. That's my root. right? I jump down to the third, right? That's the minor third. Back to my root. So then when I bend up, I'm hitting a note, right? We got root, third, fifth. I'm bending up to my fifth. Release, pull off, back to my third, back to my root. Okay, so that sounds great over that minor. So start to think of your minor licks like that. You're trying to find those minor chord tones. Right, I'm bending up. When I bend up this note right here, the G, or the B12, I'm going to the fifth in this shape right here. Right? Yeah, let me do it like this. There you go. Come down, pull off to the third, root. Right, so you're just tweaking those thirds and those roots. Fifth, third, root. Okay, so that's minor. So that's how you would play that scale in a minor capacity. Now, you have to keep in mind what the other chords in an F sharp minor progression are. And then what you want to do is, as those chords come in your progression, you want to find those other chord shapes in your scale. So, that would be an F sharp minor 1, 4, 5. Right? Now you got a B minor chord. Back to the 1. Right, my root. And then you got. Right, so I'm targeting these notes. Now I go outside of the scale, right, the pentatonic scale, but keep in mind that my chord has that note in it. So this is where you inadvertently start playing the modes, but you don't have to know the modes. You can just see your chords in the shape. So. Right? My root, third. Back to here. And then when I bend this note up, right, it's bending into my C sharp minor, right, chord, but the C sharp note for my 5 chord. So that's how you start to look and analyze the chord progression. You start to see those chords in those two shapes. I didn't even move, right? Barely out of position 1, and I was able to hit every single note in my 1, 4, 5 minor chord progression. Now, let's flip that, use that same scale, and do a major 1, 4, 5. So now you got. Totally different sound. Now we're happy. We're like, woohoo, let's go out with our friends. It's going to be awesome. Sweet night. Have some beers if you're, over 21, obviously. Or like, have some Gatorade. And a Snickers bar if you're, under 21. Now, obviously, right? We know how it goes. So we're being careful about what we recommend to people here. Let's stick to music. So here we go. So, A, same scale, right? Let's stick in the first two positions. So, Now, over my 1 chord, using this scale, I want to stick to some of these notes right here. And then I want to pay attention, do any of the notes that I bend, do those work? Right? Like they do in minor. A lot of these notes bend. Like this note works when I bend it in minor. That note works when I bend it in minor. Does that apply in major? No. Let me show you. So we go. That note works great. So all I did was I slid from 2 to 4, hit my 5th. I'm going to do that same thing. Hit my root. Now I can bend here and get to my 3rd of my A chord right here. So that does work. Bending on the G over the 1 chord does work. Now, if you really want to make that work, you can bar these 2 notes of your pentatonic scale. Remember I said everything's kind of towards the front side of the position, right? So these 2 notes to the front side of position 2, right? So when we bend this, total Skinnerd bend, right? Straight to Southern rock. Or country or whatever, right? And then right back to the front side of the scale to resolve it. Another thing I do in major is I'll roll over. And what I mean by that is I'll like pull off, roll over to the next chord tone. Right? And it works great over this D chord. Now check this out. I have in position 1, I have this D shape of my D chord, and I also have my 5 chord D shape, right? It's an E chord, looks like a D shape though, right? So I don't have to leave this position ever if I don't want to hit the 1, 4, and 5 chords. So we did the A chord. Now, just like I hit some notes that weren't in my F sharp minor pentatonic, this note, this D note, is not in my A major pentatonic scale, but I'm going to use it because it's part of the chord. Right? It sounds awesome because it's part of the 4 chord. So I'm going to roll over. Right? Now, can I bend anywhere to get to another chord tone? Well, yes, I have a D chord right here. So if I bend the B string 5th fret, I can get into the 3rd of this chord. Right? So right, I'm catering all those notes around this D chord shape. Now when I get to the 5 chord, maybe I'll do a rollover like there. So I'll get my note here, which is my major 3rd, my root, and my 5th. Sick lick. So we got 4, again, not in the scale, but it's part of my E chord. Right, I hit my root, my E note. I'm rolling over. Down to my 3rd, right? Same note. To my root and my E chord, okay? Now all I did in that last lick over the A was, remember I said be able to see those 3 chord shapes, right? And I'll go over that again in those videos, so check it out. It's way more in depth, like 20-minute lessons on each topic, right? So we have those 3 chord shapes. Okay, so A chord, A chord, A chord. all I'm doing is I'm chaining with my pentatonic, keeping these shapes in mind. Position 3, position 2, and then position 1. All with those A chords. So, chord tone of this. Right now I'm into this shape. Now I'm into my A here. Right, and I'm just throwing those A chords together, right? But you're using the chord tones to help guide you to how to use the scale more effectively, how to solo more effectively, whether you're using major or minor, right? So it's the same scale, but it's all how you play it. You gotta play minor differently than you play major, because the one chord, for instance, is in the same spot. One last time, so check it out. Look where my target notes are. An A. Right, so my root, minor. Major. Different sound, same scale, and it's all because we're learning how to hit the chords inside of the scales, and that is everything. You guys are awesome. Thanks for checking in once again. We'll catch you next time. Alright, and thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell button to be notified when the latest videos are released. Check the main channel page for other playlists like the popular Guitarists You Should Know, where I feature today's hottest touring and session guitar players. Support the cause by visiting brettpapa.com, where I take you from learning other people's songs and licks to creating your own. Catch you next time!